All right, coming up next, we do something every week called a community moment. It's a chance for members of our own community to get up, talk about something they've been reading, something they've learned, an experience they've had, really anything at all within reason. Community moments, we've had all kinds of different presentations. If you'd like to get on the schedule to do that, by the way, you can see Mike House, and we'll be happy to do that. Today's community moment is Dr. Natalie Khazaal, someone we've had the privilege of hearing from before, not in a community moment, but in a main talk. Her talk is entitled Hormones and the Fear of Public Speaking. And based on that picture up there, I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. Natalie has been a member of Oasis for almost a year now, and she's very interested in diversity and participation within our group. Natalie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to thank Stephanie, Hillary, Kathy Plato, Alicia, Emily, Hugo, Stephen, Mike, and Jerry for their contribution to this talk. Some of the ideas in the talk were suggested by them. According to billionaire Warren Buffett, public speaking is a skill that would boost your personal value by 50%. Like Buffett, most people understand today public speaking as a personal skill that involves the individual's career prospects and brings in a higher salary or as a confidence booster. But public speaking was not always linked to the individual. Before the modern period, it was seen more as a building block of the community. And I suggest revisiting this important avatar of public speaking. While everyone should aspire to benefit on a personal level, I think that we should also use public speaking to forge and strengthen connections with others and contribute to the group's identity. How does Hello? How does public speaking create a community? An example would help illustrate it. Several months ago, Hugo Paris gave a community moment in which he shared his fear of speaking with others and how hard it was to change being introvert. After his talk, several people approached him to strike up conversations, and Jerry invited him to a superhero movie, which resulted in Hugo and Jerry founding an Oasis extracurricular activity club, the Cinema Club. And this is the proof, or one of the movies that we went to. Oasis also benefited, so Hugo, when he spoke publicly, benefited by forming new friendships and connecting to others. But Oasis also benefited with the Cinema Club, which strengthens connections among its members and the opportunities for more intimate and informal interactions.
Let me give you this one instead.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. The community-building dimension of public speaking is not a particularly new concept for Houston Oasis. What is new in my talk is looking at who participates and who doesn't, and why. When I was preparing 3 months ago, I looked at our scheduling history on Facebook. Roughly, for the past year and a half, let's say 75 meetings and 150 speakers, I could account for about 15 talks by women. Although last month we had a cluster of 3 or 4 talks by women. That makes the male-female ratio about 10-1. Women spoke only 10% of the time, yet they make up 50% of the regular membership. This data is based on an incomplete search in the archives and on the personal impressions of several members. Despite the numbers' slight inaccuracy, I believe most would agree that there have been visibly more male than female speakers here. What does this data mean? I interviewed several members of Oasis to gain some insight about the types of pressures and incentives each gender feels when it comes to public speaking. Whereas male members understood they were giving a talk in terms of contribution to the group, female members understood it in terms of connecting with other individuals. When taking the decision to volunteer and speak, men looked at what important topic is unlikely to be raised so they could cover it. Women, by contrast, looked at how their ideas were going to resonate with members and how they can form an emotional bond through the talk with their audience. We learn these attitudes from society. And since our society values contribution more than connection, it is not surprising that women feel that they have nothing to contribute and so should not speak. Another approach to understand this difference is to look at the chemistry of the human brain and what experts in the field of gendered public speaking say about it. The powerful fear that public speaking notoriously generates can be neutralized by confidence. Researchers have found that there is a strong correlation between confidence genes and levels of neurotransmitters in the brain, like serotonin, cortisol, oxytocin, or testosterone. Whereas increased levels of oxytocin, which typically happens with mothers, boost empathy and the feeling of being connected to others, an increase in the level of testosterone boosts confidence. The way it works is by making us more prone to taking risks, and less conscious of all the things that could possibly go wrong. Men typically have more testosterone than women, which explains to some extent their higher public participation and higher levels of confidence. Here's how testosterone works on confidence levels. Here are some examples from research. According to research, women apply for promotion when they feel they have 100% of the required qualifications, while men when they have only 50%. While women underestimate their abilities, men overestimate them by 30%. Men think they deserve 20% more money than women. The most consistent finding in all the research is that men overestimate their abilities and performance. Men do it unconsciously, which Ernesto Rubin of Columbia University calls honest overconfidence. And if you need an example of an absolutely predictable study, it's that women underestimate their abilities and performance. There is agreement that if you do that study, you would always predict the result. Men produce 10 times more testosterone on average than women. Are women doomed? First, women, keep in mind that testosterone not only makes one more confident, but also more wrong. People who were given testosterone in a study were wrong more often than those who weren't. Second, although the differences between men and women seem predetermined by genes, new research shows that our brains change in response to the environment. For example, testosterone levels in men decline when they spend more time with their children. So how can women, and many men for that matter, change the environment to boost confidence in order to connect and contribute to the group? Social psychologist Amy Cuddy of Harvard studies how humans judge each other. She argues that body language affects how others judge us, specifically when we fake power through opening our body to take up more space around us. We condition others to take us more seriously, to think that we are more confident, and that we have something valuable to say to which they should pay attention. She calls this body language power posing. She found that when we do power posing, even for as little as 2 minutes, our hormone levels change. Testosterone increases and cortisol decreases. Wow. With the increase of testosterone, we are more likely to take risks, to project confidence, and to perform better in situations where other people judge us. Cuddy's findings would fit perfectly with public speaking, I think. I did that.
With her power.
Why do we need more talks by women? If they don't want to participate, let them not participate. Isn't that the right answer? I think we need more talks by women because our group prides itself on valuing the individual more than the principle, like the poster says, or the idea. I think it only makes sense that we should hear from more individuals and from more diverse individuals. That will paint a more authentic face of our group and its multiple perspectives. What are some suggestions? Some suggestions how to do this. First, I invite us all to fake confidence. To increase our testosterone and thus our confidence by practicing power posturing for a couple of minutes. These are examples of power posturing. After a serious head injury in a car accident, Dr. Cuddy was told she would never be able to finish college. As a matter of fact, her IQ dropped dramatically. Eventually, by faking confidence, she was not only able to graduate, but went on to become Time magazine's #1 person who inspires America to change. Her talk on the subject of faking confidence is among the 15 most viewed TED Talks worldwide. Second, I invite us all to stand up to our fears. These are some other examples of the power posturing.
Wonder Woman for the win.
In the October 29 episode of the Thinking Atheist podcast radio called Rational People, Irrational Fears, Seth Andrews indexed some of the irrational fears atheists have. His own irrational fear was that every Tuesday when he records his podcast show, there was a ghost staring at him from a window across the street.
Wow.
His episode is valuable because it points to recognizing that everyone can have rational fears. While rational fears might protect us, irrational ones, such as the fear of red circles, or the fear of being sucked into the toilet bowl by a monster, are damaging. Irrational fears are thinking with our feelings. In 1819, a ship sailed from Nantucket to the South Pacific. On the way, sailors set Charles Island on fire as a prank. Then, their attempts to kill a whale sank the ship. They were stranded in deep ocean and they had two options. One was to go to a nearby island, which was rumored to have cannibals. The other, to travel 4 times longer trip to South America, for which they did not have resources, water or food. Because of the irrational fear of cannibalism, they chose the second route. As a result, all of them died except for 3 people who were found stranded months later, or weeks later in the ocean. That later became the plot of Moby Dick, or the model for Moby Dick. The point of this story is that we would be better off twisting our fears and giving up irrational fears where the fear of public speaking falls, in my opinion, and instead doing something about the certainty of clogging our arteries with cholesterol, for example. After all, it might feel that the audience at Oasis are cannibals ready to swallow you alive, but this would never happen on a Sunday. Maybe if it was Monday. What makes a good topic? An icebreaker. I think the personal story brings together the two sides of the coin. Once, it connects to the audience because it tells about yourself, and number 2, it contributes by letting the audience know who you are, how you feel, what it feels to be you. For example, I remember Lou gave a community moment about his divorce and how negotiating religion was part of it and how it led to the divorce. And his story is an example of how to bridge these two perspectives. He connected to the audience and he gave us information about how religion was part of a divorce procedure. There are other people who have contributed. I can't name them all. I remember Michelle, who gave us an excellent plethora of useful information about how it feels to be living with Asperger, and Stephen also did on the same day. There's tons of people who have contributed to that kind of boosting the group. The genre of autobiographies and the personal story is becoming one of the most interesting genres of our time. And you no longer need to be at the end of your life to tell your story, like all these stories about great men, especially great white men, which they were. Today, everybody can tell their story, and usually the quirkiest stories are the most interesting. Mm-hmm. For example, Penny Marshall, who markets her story as a happy accident that started with what she called, what she thought was her mother's crazy orders to tap dance, and ended with her as the star of Laverne and Shirley. And I'm going to read a quote by her. "No matter what happens to us as adults, and shit happens, we can trace it back to our childhood. Here's the short version of everything you're about to learn. My mother was nuts, my father was boring." So she tells a story, and there's tons of other people who are telling stories that have nothing to do with having a great, successful political or literary life. What opportunities do we have here at Houston Oasis? There are a bunch of official opportunities, such as telling a joke of the week. It's only a few seconds, up to a minute, so it is the easiest thing to do. Then you can have a community moment which connects to the community, or you can inform us with a main talk. But there are also informal opportunities, and I invite you, for example, to talk to new people. People who come for the first time to any group are usually feeling very insecure because they don't know the rules of the group, they don't know the environment. I remember the bad thing is that when I first came to this group, I tried to participate in a conversation with several people in the group, and I introduced myself, but it didn't go farther than just saying hello, so the group didn't include me. The good thing is that I don't remember who these people were. So I invite you to really speak to people, and I've seen a lot of people do it. I invite you to practice it consciously. That's public speaking. That's how we can connect and make this community stronger, and also that's a service to the newcomers. Another more informal opportunity is to ask a question of a speaker or to share a comment. I remember Jesse told us how he benefited when he shared a comment with Stephanie about brain disorders and how he improved his understanding, and we did because he shared it with us as well. So this is a great example of public speaking. You can also raise a topic or start participating, start a thread online, and some people do it, and it's very interesting. Basically, you can do anything you like as long as you increase your voice. We hear from you. This is an example of if you want to hear some speeches. This is an example. You can go to that website and just see daily speeches. Thank you very much.